Next level. next level. Hi, today I'm going to do an experiment for finding out which core suits best for the transformers. Now guys, this what you see is a microwave transformer, and this coil that you see is the primary winding of another similar transformer from microwave. I cut off the core and these are the core parts, okay? The next what I'm going to use is a 220 volts to 12 volts UPS transformer. I'm also going to use this 12 volts car headlamp bulb. So without any further delay, let's get started. Take the UPS transformer and these are the low voltage high current wires. Next, take up your 12 volts 100 watts car headlamp bulb and take one of its wires out of the two and connect it. Now two wires remain, one from the transformer and other from the bulb. Now to these two wires, this microwave primary coil will be connected. The connection is complete. Now next comes connecting supply to this transformer. Now guys, this one is my 220 volts home socket supply. So let's connect it to the UPS transformer high voltage side. Let's turn the switch on. So everything seems fine, the connections are also fine. This bulb, yeah, as you can see that the bulb is glowing a little bit. So next what I'm going to do is connect this clamp meter to measure the current drawn by this core from this. Keep your hands away from a turned on transformer. Now guys, if you look closely to my tester, you can see that the core is actually live. Now guys, at present this meter indicates the current drawn by this core and the bulb, and it's AC current. Now I'm going to try different cores with which either the current is going to decrease or increase depending upon various factors. So 2.34 with no core. Now I'm going to start on with aluminum. Let's see if there is a decrease. Yeah, the current being drawn is reduced to around a minimum of 2.31 because of some impurities, of course. Moving on to the silicon steel laminated iron core, and you can see that the current has considerably reduced from 2.34 to only 1.92. That is amazing. Let's do this way. 1.86 and then the super thick core that I have, and here we have the minimum of 1.64 amperes. So laminated steel cores reduce the iron losses, because of which the drawing current is obviously very low. And not just that, because of the core inside the coil, the inductance increases and so the drawn current reduces. Now ferrite core, here we have 2.01. So guys, the minimum that we have reached with the ferrite core is around 1.89 amperes. So guys, which one of the two do you think is better for transformer core? Silicon steel core or ferrite core? It doesn't matter. If you choose either of the two, you are going to be wrong. Now guys, here I'm going to explain it to you in the simplest way possible, and I am sure that you will understand it and never forget it. Now these two curves are the BH curves that represent hysteresis loss. This one, which is the first one, is for silicon steel core, which is this. Now this piece is from a microwave transformer. I cut it off. So the BH curve area for the silicon steel core is a lot bigger than the curve area for the ferrite cores. Bigger the area means more power loss, more hysteresis loss. So with the help of this curve, we can easily say that the ferrite cores, this one, are much superior to the silicon steel core because of less hysteresis losses. Now B represents flux density and H represents magnetic field. Now guys, we all know that a transformer works on AC supply. So here, as you can see, that at the first cycle, let's say this cycle, which is the positive cycle, the core charges and the field is like this is north and this is south, and then it goes to the negative side, which removes the north and changes it to south here, and remove the south from here and changes it to north here. Now comes case 1. Let's say that this core is silicon steel type core and the AC supply that we are feeding to the primary is from a high speed switching supply. like very high frequency. But the core that we are planning on using is the 50 Hz or 60 Hz transformer core. So the hysteresis loss is going to be 2000 times more than usual, resulting in heating up your silicon steel core to insane temperatures. So for these very reasons, steel cores are restricted to be operated at lower frequencies of 50 to 60 Hz, and for higher frequencies even up to megahertz, ferrite cores are used. Now guys, if we consider case 2, another type of power loss will occur, which will be due to saturation. Now here, as you can see on the diagram, here I'm using a ferrite core. You see it's like the D type, this type. You see, somewhat similar I tried to make. Okay, that's your secondary, and this one is your primary number of turns, D type of ferrite core. So when the primary is fed with low frequency AC supply, which is 50 Hz, the ferrite core reaches the saturation point very easily. Here in the diagram, as you can see, that the induced magnetic field is inside the core, the D-shaped core. Now because the frequency is very low, 50 Hz, it gets saturated, the core gets saturated very easily. And by saturation I mean that the core gets fully magnetized. Now even if I increase the current from the power input source, it is still not going to get any more magnetized, and that induced magnetic field which was inside the core gets out of the core, which is called the popping effect, and hence it draws huge current from the source and creating large amount of power loss. Now guys, I'm going to share with you a very important pointer, another one, and I'm going to make you understand that with an example of inverters. Now this big, large, heavy inverter is 600 watts, but this very small mini inverter is 1500 watts. Although it is really small, but still it is 1500 watts. And this one is so big, but still it is only 600 watts. Even though both are modified sine wave inverters, but still, why is that? This inverter has high speed switching frequency mode because of the ferrite core type of transformer, while this has the old one, laminated steel, silicon steel core type of transformer, and that transformer is so heavy that it makes this inverter not portable at all. But this is like very easy to pick up. This is so heavy that this is the super big transformer of the old type of inverter. And now guys, I've also opened this small size high power inverter, and you can see the transformer size is just this much. You see, it is really small, and yet it is capable of handling up to 1000 watts. That is because it has two stages. You see, this one is so big. So now we can say that the ferrite cores are much better than the silicon steel core. Again, no. What will you say for the motors, the low frequency operating induction and universal motors? You cannot use ferrite cores because they are brittle. If they fall or get a jerk, they are going to break, which is not the case with the silicon steel core. These motors operate at around 50 to 60 Hz, which is low frequency, that is really bad or creates excessive loss for ferrite cores. So guys, I tried to cover every possible pointer for the ferrite cores and the silicon steel cores. I believe that now you have a better understanding for both of them. And if you really like the video, you can contribute by subscribing to my channel, and then you can get notified for the upcoming awesome videos. That's it. See you in the next one. Bye bye.